Welcome back to your news bulletin. Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan says the racist Hindu supremacist Indian government has deprived Kashmiris of all basic amenities during the ongoing lockdown. In a tweet, Khan said the world must understand the plight of Kashmiris who are living without medical, financial and communication facilities or food assistance for 8 months. The Prime Minister said there are ongoing protests against lockdowns worldwide, including the developed world. Khan said despite this, Prime Minister Narendra Modi's government has ensured that Kashmiris are deprived of all basic amenities in the valley during the ongoing crisis. The occupied valley has been facing a critical health crisis due to the lockdown and communication blackout, which have been in place since 5th August. In Pakistan, Prime Minister Imran Khan has urged people to pray at home during the Islamic holy month of Ramadan. But he said if people wish to offer their prayers in mosques, they will have to follow an action plan agreed on between the government and clerics. Addressing a media briefing in Islamabad, Khan said his government is trying to strike a balance between protecting people and allowing the economy to function. He said the country is facing unprecedented challenges due to the coronavirus crisis, but an indefinite lockdown is impossible in any society. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Imran Khan will get tested for the coronavirus following medical advice. There are more than 9,500 coronavirus cases in Pakistan, with 192 deaths and over 2,000 recoveries. The new coronavirus has killed over 170,000 people worldwide, while almost 2.5 million have been infected. In Spain, the death toll from the virus has risen again, with 430 fatalities in the past 24 hours, up from 399 yesterday. Iran has reported 88 new deaths, increasing the total to nearly 5,300. Earlier, the United States recorded 1,500 fatalities in the past 24 hours, raising the total to over 42,000. Further details in this report.
Protests in opposition to the lockdowns enforced to contain COVID-19 in many countries are becoming a major challenge for authorities. In the US, medical workers and health experts cautioned that lifting lockdowns too soon risk unleashing a greater disaster. President Donald Trump has been accused of inciting insurrection after championing the demonstrators. But at a White House briefing, Trump urged Americans to continue social distancing efforts.
At a time when millions of American workers and families are struggling with the financial consequences of the virus, it's critical to continue the medical war while reopening the economy in a safe and responsible fashion. During this time, Americans must maintain strict vigilance and continue to practice careful hygiene, social distancing, and the other protective measures.
The International Committee of the Red Cross has stepped up efforts to prevent the spread of coronavirus in overcrowded prisons in South Asia. India recorded its biggest single-day spike in cases as the government eased lockdown, allowing some manufacturing and agricultural activity to resume. In Italy, the number of new infections has fallen for the first time since the country's outbreak began. After Italy, Spain, and the US, France has become the 4th country to cross 20,000 coronavirus deaths.
Tonight, our company passes a symbolic mark, a particularly painful one, and we sadly announce more than 20,000 deaths. Despite the French people's effort to scrupulously respect the confinement, physical and social distancing and other barrier gestures, the epidemic remains very fatal. And so we all have to stay vigilant, mobilized, conscious that our efforts should last and that we should not give up.
China has reported 11 new confirmed cases on the mainland with no new deaths. Meanwhile, Saudi Arabia has banned all prayers inside the holy mosques in Mecca and Medina during the month of Ramadan.
Now, the World Health Organization has warned that rushing to ease coronavirus restrictions will likely lead to a resurgence of the contagion. The World Health Body's remarks come as governments start rolling out plans to get economies back on track. In a statement, WHO Director for the Western Pacific said that this is not the time to relax restrictions. Dr. Takeshi Kasai said people should get themselves ready for a new way of living for the foreseeable future. He said governments must remain vigilant to stop the spread of the virus. Kasai said the lifting of lockdowns and other social distancing measures must be done gradually. Earlier, WHO Chief Tedros Adhanom also warned that the worst is yet to come in the coronavirus pandemic. President Donald Trump says he will sign an executive order to temporarily suspend all immigration to the U.S. In a tweet, Trump says the measure will help fight the coronavirus and protect the jobs of American citizens. The White House has declined to comment about the reasoning behind the decision, its timing, or its legal basis. The U.S. economy has come to a near standstill as more than 22 million people applied for unemployment benefits during the past month. The U.S. is the worst hit country from COVID-19 with over 42,000 deaths. The European Union may need a $1.7 trillion economic package to help the bloc recover from the COVID-19 crisis. In an interview, EU industry chief Thierry Breton said that member states are not in agreement over the technical aspects of the financial plan. He said differences also persist over the amount of money required to help the bloc recover. Breton said a new Marshall Plan was needed to help the European tourism industry. Economic activity crashed across Europe as coronavirus lockdowns caused large businesses to record their largest ever monthly falls. In India, Modi's decision to extend a nationwide lockdown to halt the spread of the coronavirus has left thousands of migrant workers with no food or shelter. Now they have nowhere to go and are forced to collect scraps from the fields to survive. Let's take a look at the wretched condition of India's migrant workers in this report.
Migrant workers have been left at the mercy of circumstances in the financial hub of India. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi extended the nationwide lockdown on 1.3 billion people until 3rd May to contain the coronavirus. But it has been grossly mismanaged, leaving poor migrant workers stranded with no work and no way to reach home. Migrant workers fear they will starve to death even if they survive the pandemic.
Apart from financial problems, we have many more issues. We are running out of cooking gas and we don't have money to refill it. Everybody is trapped in the lockdown and nobody is going to help us. How will we cook food when there will be no cooking gas? I think we will die out of hunger rather than coronavirus.
तो हम लोग तो कोरोना वायरस से नहीं खाने से मर जाता है.
The lockdown sparked protests by jobless migrant workers in Mumbai earlier this week.
हमारा जो है डेली का earnings है.
We are daily wage workers and we run our family with those earnings. We have no income due to the lockdown. We're unable to pay the room rent. There's scarcity of grocery. We're facing a lot of problems.
काफी मुसीबत झेल रहे हैं हम लोग.
In northwestern Bhilwara city, the daily wage workers are collecting scraps from agricultural fields to survive.
We are facing troubles because there is no work to do. We don't have money to even eat food. We had a little rice left, but it's over now. We have no grains left. We are collecting scraps from agricultural fields and we go there every day and somehow fill our stomach.
507 people have died of the novel coronavirus and at least 13,000 infected in the country so far. Modi has taken strict measures to prevent these figures from rising higher. But India could soon be in the grip of a new crisis as a consequence of these very actions.
In Bangladesh, a Medics Foundation says COVID-19 has infected over 200 doctors across the country. Bangladesh has recorded 101 deaths and nearly 3,000 infection cases so far. The foundation said reason behind the high number of infections is the poor quality of personal protective equipment. It said apart from doctors, nearly 150 healthcare workers, including nurses, have been infected with the virus so far. Last week, a doctor in the eastern city of Sylhet died from the virus. In Afghanistan, governor of Eastern KHOST province has escaped a roadside bomb attack. The attack comes a day after 28 Afghan policemen were killed in alleged encounters with the Taliban. The governor's spokesperson said Mohammad Halim Fadey remained unhurt in the explosion near his office. The rescue officials said 5 people, including 2 guards and 3 civilians, were wounded. No one has yet claimed responsibility for the attack. In another news, Turkish and Russian troops have conducted their 5th joint patrol in Syria's northwestern province of Idlib. The patrol is being conducted in line with Moscow agreement. In a tweet, the Turkish Defense Ministry said the joint patrol was conducted by air and ground vehicles. The patrol covered the M4 highway, which connects the cities of Aleppo and Latakia. The two countries agreed on a protocol which urged parties to cease all military actions along the line of contact in the Idlib de-escalation zone. The protocol said the joint patrol would be done from the settlement of Trumba to the settlement of Ain al-Havr. Idlib has been long under siege by the Assad regime's forces and its allies, and previous ceasefires in the region were consistently broken. Meanwhile, the United Nations has dispatched 55 truckloads of humanitarian aid to Syria's Idlib. Syria says it has thwarted an Israeli air attack over the Palmyra city and shot down multiple missiles. The state media says the projectiles were destroyed before reaching their targets. There were no immediate reports of damage or casualties. The attack came only hours after a meeting of President Bashar al-Assad and Iranian Foreign Minister Javad Zarif in Damascus. Since the start of Syrian conflict in 2011, Israel has carried out hundreds of such attacks. Israel has not claimed responsibility for the raid yet. Iran has demanded the U.S. to end their presence in the Persian Gulf, terming American forces an obstacle in normal patrol operations. Foreign Ministry spokesperson Abbas Mousavi said the foreign forces should end their illegitimate presence in the region. Mousavi was responding to U.S. allegations that 11 Iranian military vessels violated international norms as they circled U.S. ships in the Persian Gulf last week. The Revolutionary Guard acknowledged the incident, saying that the U.S. sparked the tense encounter without providing details. Meanwhile, Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps said it has increased the range of its naval missiles from 45 to 700 kilometers. In an interview, IRGC Commander Brigadier General Alireza Tangizri said the country did this without any foreign assistance. The United Nations has conveyed concerns over the deteriorating humanitarian situation in and around Libya's capital, Tripoli. In a statement, the UN support mission in Libya said it is alarmed over the escalation of fighting in the past few days. The UN mission said 5 people were killed and 28 others wounded due to an increase in shelling on civilian settlements in the capital. It said the shelling resulted in displacement and damaged civilian infrastructure. The mission said it is also alarmed at the worsening situation in Tarhuna due to military escalation. It urged the warring parties to de-escalate and called for a humanitarian truce in context of the coronavirus crisis. Libya has been torn apart by a civil war between the GNA and the Libyan National Army since April last year. The Palestine Liberation Organization has warned against the Israeli annexation of the Palestinian lands after the formation of Tel Aviv's new unity government. PLO Secretary General Saeb Erekat said the annexation will destroy any chances of dialogue between both sides. Erekat said the Tel Aviv administration has an option of opening ways for talks or endangering peace by settlement and annexation. He urged the global community to hold Israel accountable and make it implement its commitments under international law. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has already announced his plans to annex key parts of East Jerusalem and West Bank as per the U.S. Middle East plan. UN agencies have called for support for displaced children in the context of the COVID-19 outbreak. The call was made by UN Children's Fund Executive Director Henrietta Fore and UN High Commissioner for Refugees Filippo Grandi. In a joint statement, they said displaced children have limited access to prevention services, testing, treatment, and other essential support. They said containment measures are likely to have negative consequences for children's safety and education. The statement said more displaced children are now likely to be out of school for a prolonged period, and some may never return. It said millions of children around the world have been driven from their homes and across borders by conflict and violence. Domestic air traffic is down by 70% worldwide, and the recovery over the coming 6 months is likely to be slow. The industry's representative body IATA said a slow recovery expected due to the damage coronavirus has done to economic conditions. IATA chief economist Brian Pierce said recovery for airlines will depend initially on the recovery of domestic markets and consumer confidence. He said the economic environment expected over the next 6 months is not conducive due to any substantial return to air travel for financial reasons. Pierce added that the recovery in the third quarter is expected to be relatively modest. In Australia and the US, business confidence remains low at this time, depressing domestic demand. Pierce attributed the failure of Virgin Australia in part to the lack of demand as well as the cash crisis that a number of airlines are facing. We have a lot more coming up right after this short break, so stay tuned. Welcome back. Now, the US President Donald Trump has asked South Korea to pay more in military defense costs while rejecting Seoul's latest offer. US officials earlier said the South Korea's offer included an increase of at least 13% from the previous cost-sharing accord. Trump said the US is doing a tremendous job of defending South Korea, but Washington should be treated fairly. He lauded Washington's wonderful relationship with Seoul before saying his decision was not about reducing the US military forces. He said it is up to Seoul if they wanted to contribute towards the defense of their own nation.
We are negotiating for President Moon and for South Korea to help us monetarily, because we, as you know, we have 32,000 soldiers there. That varies from 28 to 32,000 in South Korea. And we think that before I came aboard, they paid very little, if anything. So we're defending a wonderful nation, a nation that we have great relationships, but we're asking them to pay for a big percentage of what we're doing. It's not fair.
Trump said he is negotiating with South Korea's President Moon Jae-in to help the US monetarily for its service. Now, in another news, in the UK House of Commons is trying out its new working arrangements in preparation for MPs' return after Easter break. Speaker Sir Lindsay Hoyle led a rehearsal in which ministers faced questions via video link. In the Commons, screens have been installed to allow MPs to speak remotely. The number of members present in the chamber will be limited to about 50 with their seats marked. The new hybrid system will not be used for debating legislation initially, as it is confined to those actually in the chamber. If approved by the MPs, the new practices from tomorrow will initially operate until 12th May. The self-proclaimed Donetsk People's Republic says Ukraine has failed to agree on new arms disengagement areas again. This comes after the contact group on Ukrainian reconciliation met via a video link to discuss troops pullout. DPR's envoy Alexei Nikonov said they suggested 4 areas to withdraw troops and weapons in Donbass, but Ukraine rejected all. He said Kiev's stance demonstrates that they have no intention to agree on any of the proposed areas and hampers talks. Fighting between Ukrainian forces and Russia-backed fighters in Donbass has killed more than 30,000 people since 2014. Earlier in November, both sides concluded withdrawing from Petrivske village in the region. As coronavirus lockdowns crush businesses around the world, some high-tech local farms in the United Arab Emirates are eyeing big growth as authorities plow funds in agri-tech projects. Details in this report.
For years, the Desert Gulf Arab states, which rely on food imports for between 80% to 90% of local demand, have been spending billions of dollars on agricultural investment outside their borders in a quest for food security. But as the fast-spreading coronavirus piles pressure on global food supply chains, local producers hope they can now play a bigger role.
The COVID-19 virus will surely have a long-term impact. The world as we know it has changed forever. From a macro standpoint, governments will go back to localizing certain vital industries, such as agriculture, to ensure supply will never be interrupted.
Expensive programs to increase food output in the region have in the past run up against a hot climate and lack of water. The oil-rich UAE capital Abu Dhabi had approved a series of incentive packages worth 1 billion dirhams in 2019 to support agricultural technology projects. In April, Abu Dhabi Investment Office invested $100 million in 4 companies, including US-based Aero Farms, that will build facilities in the Emirate. Aero Farms is setting up a research and development center in Abu Dhabi to help bring fresh fruits and vegetables grown in vertical farms.
Many parts of the world, people say, I don't even want to be second, I don't even want to be third. Come to me after you've proven it out again and again. And in the UAE, often we hear, we want to be first, we want to be bold, let's do it faster. And that's fantastic. As an innovator, as an entrepreneur, we want to partner with people like that.
Abu Dhabi is willing to bet on new technologies at a time when the coronavirus pandemic has changed how corporations work due to global containment measures.
In South China, the sky lit up at night to welcome the medical staff working on the front line in the fight against COVID-19. People in Zhuhai City have shown their gratitude to medics in a unique way. More in this report.
Zhuhai City sent a 54-member medical team to assist medics in Hubei, the hardest hit province by the COVID-19 epidemic in the country. When they came back home, they spent 14 days in quarantine. Meanwhile, people in the city planned an amazing welcome for them. 300 drones staged a stunning light show over Sumlo Dol Hengqing camping town to thank the team.
There are many Hubei people in our company, so we want to do our part to show our genuine gratitude to all medical workers by throwing the drone show.
The medics enjoyed the spectacular drone performance together and were all deeply moved by the gratitude and messages delivered through the show.
One is the pattern of removing the mask and the other one is love in Jiangguolu. That impressed me a lot because they took care of us during the past 14 days during the quarantine.
The first patient of new coronavirus was diagnosed in Wuhan City in Hubei province. Thanks to these medics, the Hubei has no infection cases anymore and has been reopened after a strict lockdown.
Staff at the Sowerby Hall and Garden Zoo in England are holding a party for Rosie, the penguin, to celebrate her 30th birthday. The zoo remains closed to visitors due to the coronavirus lockdown, but the staff say they want to mark the special occasion for both the penguin and the zoo with a party and plenty of fish. Head zookeeper John Pickering said Rosie arrived at Sowerby in 1990 and has successfully hatched chicks over the years. Rosie is a Humboldt penguin, which in wild has a life expectancy of 15 to 20 years. Staff believes she could be one of the oldest penguins in the United Kingdom. We have a lot more coming up right after this short break, so stay tuned. For our top business story, we look at the global oil markets, which remain under intense pressure, with Brent crude dropping below $20 per barrel for the first time in 18 years. Currently, markets see no let-up to the collapse in oil demand that sent some U.S. oil benchmarks plunging below $0 for the first time on Monday. Following the historic crash in U.S. crude prices, all the major S&P 500 subsectors dropped over 2%. The Nasdaq Composite Index fell nearly 4%, while the Dow Jones Industrial Average also traded about 2% lower. Major oil stocks, including ExxonMobil and Chevron, hitting low with nearly 3% and 5%, respectively. Meanwhile, U.S. President Donald Trump said he has instructed the Treasury and Energy Secretaries to develop a plan to secure the American oil and gas industry. China has criticized India's new foreign direct investment policy, saying it is against principles of the World Trade Organization. Last week, India stepped up scrutiny of investments from companies based in neighboring countries, mainly targeting Beijing. In a statement, China's embassy in New Delhi said the rules are based on discrimination and are against free and fair trade. The embassy spokesperson Ji Rong said new rules are making it much difficult for neighboring states to invest in India. She said China's investment in India is over $8 billion, which is far more than total investments of other neighbors. The spokesperson said the impact of Delhi's new policy on Chinese investors is clear. China's central bank has announced it is conducting tests of a digital yuan payment system in 4 of its cities. The People's Bank of China said it is implementing internal closed trials of the central bank's electronic payment system. It said Beijing plans to pilot the system at future Winter Olympics venues. The bank said the electronic payment system remains in a period of research and development, and digital yuan has not been issued officially yet. The bank said tests will not affect yuan issuance, circulation, or financial markets outside of the testing environment. Now let's look at the weather from around the globe. This is all for now. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at indus.news.